Pro Football Hall of Fame finalist once again, one of my favorite people on the planet. His San Francisco 49ers. He's the general manager of that team. They're the 1 seed taking on the Vikings in front of the home crowd to kick off the divisional playoff weekend on Saturday on NBC. He is John Lynch. How are you, John?
I'm doing great, Rich. It's crazy as I'm just listening to you talk, and that gentleman who was a Seahawks fan,
Yes.
and the fact that we're the 1 seed by 6 inches. It's crazy. You go 13-3.
Isn't that amazing?
But it's 6 inches that decides whether we're a 1 or a 5, I guess. So
that's kind of your
crazy.
season. That's kind of your season, John. I mean, your team having lost, you never got blown out. They were all tight games. Your team is competitive. Your team is tough. Your team is nasty. Your team is tested as well from this year, despite obviously having a bunch of people not in the playoffs previous to this year for a lot of folks on the team. What is it like, though, for you? Somebody who's played in playoff games, played in big-time games, won a championship. What is it like for you, though, to be a GM in this situation?
It's a combination of, this is why I made the leap, and this is why you do it, to try to build a team that can compete for championships and be in a position like this. And then it's something I continue to deal with in this role is the helpless feeling that there's nothing I can do right now. And, from my standpoint, kind of haze in the barn. So just support these guys. But the coolest thing, Rich, is got so much confidence in this team for no other reason other than that they've earned it all year long. They've just been up to every test, and I think when you talk about being tested, I don't know if I've ever been involved in a season where you experienced the variety of things, and a team has come through in a variety of ways, whether it be, winning 9-0 in the rain in DC or a shootout in New Orleans and winning with a dominant defense or winning with a run offense or a pass offense. And it's a testament to the mettle of this group. I think it's also a testament to Kyle Shanahan, his leadership, and his staff. They've done a tremendous job kind of putting together a group of really talented and young men that have a lot of high character, and so hats off to all them. They deserve the credit.
And however, I know there's no I in John or Lynch, but let me say then, you helped build this team too, John. So how is this in the mold of what you envisioned or what you embodied as a player?
Yeah, I think all of us are product of our experiences, and so as you start to put this thing together, I don't think it's brain surgery. You look at each other, Kyle and I, and okay, we got to find our quarterback, and we're very fortuitous, and Jimmy Garoppolo came our way, and we saw him go to work in that first year, and then had a great deal of belief that not only did he change our team, but also that the room for improvement was immense, and that was going to come with experience. Unfortunately, that got cut short last year, but this year he got to experience a whole year, and I think really shined. But then I think when I think of this team, the hallmark is that coupled with building our D line. We wanted to build a defensive front that was one that you were going to have to be reckoned with each and every week, and if you didn't give them the proper attention, they were going to wreak havoc. And so I think we built the team in that mold, and we also had ideas in terms of the type of spirit we wanted on this team. We wanted guys that were passionate, competitive, dependable, all those things that turns into the character of your team. And so I think that's how this team was built, and a lot of people played a role in it. And I think it's through both coaching staff and personnel staff working together that you really hone in on the right guys. We've made plenty of mistakes, but or fortunately, we've picked some players that really love the game and are pretty talented. And when you put that together, you've got a chance.
And John Lynch here on the Rich Eisen Show. One last question on this about how a team gets put together, and certainly you being brought in. Shanahan was already there. They reached out to you, took you out of the booth from Fox, and you said, "Yeah, I want to do this." And how it all works being put together. It just seems every single dude on offense is just a big, tall, physical beast that is running, slashing at the most difficult angle for the defense to grasp, okay? And then they're running downhill a million miles an hour, causing you to make a business decision on the other end. That's what it looks like to me. John. And is that some way that you put together, like that guy would fit perfectly here, Kyle, or Kyle's like, hey, John, that guy would fit perfectly here in the offense I'm cooking up here? How does it work?
I like hearing that, but I think that's one of the reasons, why you would leave a booth. I wasn't going to do this just for any place, and had a opportunity to be at a place that was just an iconic franchise. Then the 49ers had fallen upon some hard times, but then the opportunity to work with a guy that I thought could not just be good, but could be special in Kyle Shanahan. And so I think his ability, and, one of the things that was recognizable is we started to have conversations, even when I was in broadcast and in production meetings with him, just how well he knew his offense, how well he knew his personnel, how well he knew exactly what he was looking for at each position. And not only him, he had a whole staff that came with him that had just a lot of knowledge. Even though they were young guys, they had been in this system for a long time, and they live it, they breathe it, and they, that's what you have to do. You have to communicate and say, what exactly are we looking for? And so there were some hallmarks and some things we both agreed on. I mean, one of the things I failed to mention right at the start, one of the key components, we wanted to be a fast team. And you look at our running backs, for instance, they're all 4-3 guys. I mean, and that's awesome. And they can beat you in a variety of ways. But Kyle does such a tremendous job of getting all these athletes that we have in space, but we get out and run, and he puts them in space and puts them in great positions to make plays. Jimmy's done a great job distributing and the football, and those guys have done a great job. Now we have a really big challenge with the Vikings and their defense. Zem's been a phenomenal coach in this league for a long time on that side of the ball. They've got a group that's got great continuity. Reminds me a little bit in terms of the continuity aspect of our Tampa defenses. We had all played together so long, you kind of know exactly what someone's thinking without even verbalizing it, and you see that from the Vikings. So it's a big challenge for us.
John Lynch here, general manager of the 49ers, day before taking on the Vikings in the divisional round, and also the 38th anniversary of the catch was today. 38 years ago today, Montana threw to Clark in the back of that end zone.
Wow, I did not know that. I should know that. But
no, it's okay. You're in the here and now, John. It's my job to lend perspective. That's my job.
I'm looking back in my office right when I got here. I bought it at an auction. I said, if I'm going to be here, I got to have that in my office. So I bought a Dwight Clark signed ball, and he kind of stenciled out the play right there. So I'm looking at it right here.
That's it.
That's 38th anniversary. That's cool.
January 10th, 1982, the moment where Clark caught the ball in the back of the end zone. And so many people, obviously in 49er lore, say that's the moment where it all kind of started, or at least the tide turned when the Cowboys were no longer the NFC team to beat. It was Montana and the rest of the team. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the old saloon writing and the colors of the team are being put in the end zone in Santa Clara, like from the same exact font. Are you involved in that sort of stuff too, or that's down below the flow chart? John, that's not your idea.
I see it like everybody else on Twitter and the internet. I see those pictures. But it looks good. It looks great.
It is old school. So let's quickly get into, I guess, the nuts and bolts of who's coming back. You got a whole bunch of injured players that have a shot to come back. You're going to actually maybe take a couple off of IR today and make it official. Can you tell me about the health of some of your players coming back for this game?
Yeah,
Saturday.
It's one of the added bonuses of that number one seed and having that bye is that, we had some extra time, and I think that accomplished a couple things. Number one, we've had some key players that have been hurt, starting with Jaquiski Tart. He's been out with some broken ribs here for some weeks, and this time allowed Kwaski to get back on the field and practice, and he'll be ready to play. Quan Alexander will be activated today and will play a role in tomorrow's game. We're really excited about that. He was a huge free agent acquisition for us. Brings energy, but more importantly, just brings great football to the field for us. And then very hopeful that we'll have D Ford. I think D Ford's the one that will go right down to game time. Hamstrings can be really tricky. He's done a tremendous job rehabbing it. You have to be so judicious with those, and it's really one of those that will come down to right before the game and how he's feeling. And we're hopeful because he changes us when we're out there. We've been dominant as a D-line when D has played. and we've been really good otherwise, and we're comfortable playing if we don't have him. But he does raise it another level. It really becomes a pick your poison. Who you gonna double when he's out there? So we're hopeful that we have him, and in some form or fashion. But all that kind of will play out here in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, and Jimmy G, it's his first rodeo starting in a playoff game. I think he took the victory formation in an AFC Championship game against the Colts a couple of years ago. But that's it. How do you and Kyle get him, I guess, any way, shape, or form mentally ready for what might come? Obviously, the real experience you can't replicate it, but it is obvious. It's right there. It's your quarterback-driven league. What are your thoughts on that situation, John Lynch?
Yeah, I think the thing about experience, there's nothing you can do about it except just go do it. And the nice thing, I guess, with Jimmy is that he's been there before, not as the starter, but to me, when I first played playoff football, that because you live in the moment so much, the idea that you lose, you go home, the finality of it, the importance of every snap doesn't really hit you until you've experienced either a win or loss in the playoffs. But Jimmy, I think, has been on teams, and so that will help. But otherwise, I think just keep doing what you've done all year. I think it's one of Jimmy's great strengths. He's got an ability in the biggest moments to play his best, and in adverse conditions, playing his best, and that's something he's done all year long. As I said, he understands, and we understand the challenge. We're playing a really good team with a really good defense, but we're pretty confident about what we bring to the table, and Jimmy should be. He's done a tremendous job all year. He's got a coach who's going to put him in great positions, but I think the thing I love about Jimmy the most is he could really care less. If we ran the ball 50 times and found a way to win, he'd be happy. If he threw it 50 times and found a way to win, he's just about winning, and that's what we love about him.
Okay. Two last things for you, John. Number one, pass interference being reviewable. We've discussed it before. I know you put your hat on as a former player and a rightful Pro Football Hall of Famer, and we'll get to that in a second. But you're a general manager who also watched a moment occur in the end zone in game 256 where sure looked like there was something going on in the end zone and nothing got stopped fully to review and change it. When you go to the owners meeting in March, what will you say when you maybe asked your thoughts on whether we should continue doing what we've done the last year on this front?
I think people have to remember the lesson Coach Dungy actually taught me when you look at these rules, always go back to where, what precipitated the move to have those rules in place, and I think the idea was that we got to prevent what happened in New Orleans last year, the clearest and obvious of things. Now the problem is, when you're watching NBC or Fox and you've got 32 camera angles and you slow it down to the nth degree, everything looks like pass interference. So, you take that play up in Seattle. Well, was there contact? Absolutely. But, if anything, maybe you call it on offense and on defense. And so that's why I think, in my opinion, and it's hard to do because everybody sits there and whatever way they want to see it, they can say, hey, there was contact. But I think, in my mind, you try to prevent the clearest and the obvious of things from affecting the outcome of a game. But if you start trying to adjudicate every little bit of contact and turning over things, I think the hardest part is in this first year that's been such a transition and really thinking that it's a moving target and not knowing. I mean, if you figure like if you're in the game, you should have a good understanding of what is and isn't. And I think that's been tough, and I don't blame anyone for it. It's a new thing, but the stakes are really high. So it's a little nerve-wracking going into games. And I think the best way to do it and what we talk about, play with great technique. When you play with great technique, you don't put yourself in those adverse positions. And if you can do that, you focus on what you can control. And that's where our focus is right now.
So would you shed a tear if they said it's one and done?
If that's one and done?
If the rule of pass interference being reviewable is like, let's not do it anymore, would you shed a tear?
I wouldn't shed a tear. I think it's really hard. I'm a defensive guy, so
I hear you. See, I figured that. All right, John. Look, I'll say it. You don't have to react, but you can if you wish. You're a Hall of Famer, man, and I'm not just saying that because I've known you a long time, and I full disclosure, I call you a friend. I consider you a friend, and you deserve it. Sapp tells me all the time. Him and Brooks, their job was to make sure you got everything in that defense to clean it up and be the back end of that defense. You have a ring, 9 Pro Bowls, bunch of All-Pro seasons, first and second team, Bart Starr Man of the Year award on top of all of it. You deserve to get in. It's your 7th time on the finalist list, and I hope you hear your name Super Bowl weekend, John.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. I've been blessed. This game's been so good to me and my family, and the opportunity to play with guys like Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp and Champ Bailey and all those great teammates,
right.
and there's so many more that aren't in the Hall of Fame that were just as important to me. How blessed was I? And I just pinch myself that. People say, does it get frustrating? Sure it does, kind of getting teased every year. But you know what? 7's been a pretty good number for me. It was my number growing up. My dad loved Mickey Mantle, so he put me in 7 in Little League. And I went to Stanford, and I wasn't a fool. I was a quarterback then. I said, you don't walk into Stanford and ask for 7 quarterback. Right. There was a pretty good guy up front. So I went to 17, and then I went to the league, and I didn't have a choice, and they put me in 47. So I like the number 7, and hopefully that's a good omen.
Yeah, hopefully. And then hopefully for your sake, you're in your hotel room, not just for that, but for a game the day after the announcement, John. I hope only for that for you. That would be wonderful. So thanks for the call. Good luck. We'll chat down the line.
Thanks a lot, Rich. I appreciate it, man.
Right back at you. That's John Lynch, 49ers general manager and Pro Football Hall of Fame finalist. Hoping we remove the word finalist in a couple weeks right here on The Rich Eisen Show.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.